Have you ever had a situation where you got almost all the way to where you thought happiness would finally arrive? You got close enough that you could smell it, but you never actually touched it? How do you think you'd handle that? My guest this week is Sam Rowe, an AFL footballer who was still a teenager when his footy dream came true and he was drafted as a rookie for the Sydney Swans. He spent one season on the bench and then another season on the bench, but never achieved AFL selection and was delisted. After a few years in Adelaide playing for Norwood, Sam was recruited by Carlton, yet early in his debut season for the club, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. How Sam overcame the disease and then went on to play 100 games in the AFL is an absolutely brilliant story, which I was uplifted by, I was inspired by, and I know you will be too. Sam Rowe is a former AFL footballer. He's a carpenter, he's a cancer survivor, and he's a Movember ambassador. It is the last week of Movember. You can barely kind of see that I'm trying real hard, guys. I don't think I'm going to get there, though. Originally from Walla Walla in the Riverina in New South Wales, Sam, at 198 centimetres tall, he found early success in Australian rules football, or AFL as we call it sometimes. His career was not a linear path, and Sam made his AFL debut at 25, a full 7 years after he was first drafted as a rookie to the Sydney Swans. A lot happened in those years, including a diagnosis, surgery, and chemotherapy treatment for testicular cancer. Sam's story is not only one of inspiration, it's one that shows how just because you think life will turn out in a certain way, the way it actually turns out might be more interesting, might be even more amazing than you ever could have imagined. Sam's a superb human. He's a great ambassador for Movember. Enjoy this conversation with Sam Rowe. I'm going to try and speak at as many sporting analogies that I possibly can that will make you absolutely cringe. Mate, I just play every game like it's my first game. All right, I rely on my training and I fall back on my skills. And look, we all have off days, and I can't ever take for granted that my performance, that previous performance, will be an indicator of future performance. And I have to have the humility to understand that sometimes I'm out of my depth, and that's when I've really got to dig deep.
That sounds pretty good, mate. That sounds very good. Gives the media absolutely nothing, but you say a lot of words.
Absolutely, and this is a podcast in 4 quarters, and full credit to the boys. It's gonna be great, Sam. I'm so happy to see you. You and I meet at a very difficult time. It is the second week of Movember when you're not quite where you want to be. You're trying as hard as you can.
I need to get a bit better lighting because, honestly, I hope you can get that through the mic or through the camera.
That's
there.
pretty good.
Oh, okay. You've been complimented to start. That's good. Well done.
My problem is there's I think there might even be enough of it because I'm so old. Most of it's grey, so it doesn't actually read very well.
I'm getting some of that too, Osh. Don't worry. That's certainly got a tinge of ginge and a couple of greys as well coming through at the moment. So very nice.
At this point, I would take ginger because it at least has some colour in it. I used to be strictly off season. Used to be beard town. I would go straight from Movember to December beard, and that would just run right through till like February when we went to Bachelor. But now all of my beard is white except my moustache and the left-hand side of my handlebar. So I look like Lemmy who burned his face off trying to light a cigarette, and like only half my. So anyway,
look, this is the month to make it look good though, and just accept whatever we got. Osh, isn't it? That's all we can do. Trying to do my part, and what I did love when Movember first showed up, mid 2000s, early 2000s. It made me very happy, Sam, because I was always of the opinion that sport was always better with beards and moustaches. It just was. And I wonder if you'd like to weigh in on my theory.
All the footy purists would say that footy was better in the 80s and the 90s, and some say the game might have changed, or some say the moustaches went away. That's, if we think about it, Osh, maybe that's all it is. The facial hair got less, the footy got worse.
Perhaps, yeah, because I grew up in Queensland where, look, I'm going to be full disclosure, bro. I'm the son of 2 Euros who is like,
yeah.
What are these fucking games? They're carrying the ball. That one's got too many goalposts. Where's the soccer? That's the only one that kind of... So it wasn't really a part of... it wasn't those moments sitting down with my family or, as many men my age, with my dad, It was NRL. It was rugby league. That was the thing. And, oh, man, Wally Lewis had a moustache that was... It just struck terror into the hearts of any New South Welshman. It was amazing.
Yeah, I know. It is just very impressive. Very impressive.
I've managed to shake his hand once, and I was like when I met Prince. I'm like, just thank you is all I could say to him. Thank you. You let me connect with, the guys I didn't know how to connect with. Where are you right now? I'm in Sydney. Where are you right now?
I'm in Melbourne, so at home at the moment. So, yeah, I've been in Melbourne since I started playing at the Blues, which is in 2012. So Melbourne's been home for the last 10 years.
And I do have to ask, your hometown of Walla Walla, that's pretty aquatic at the moment. Is everyone okay?
You've done your research. That's good, Osh. Look, I think Walla, where I grew up, is okay. I've got some family around. My sister lives in Echuca, or just out of Echuca, so it's been pretty wet there at the moment. Mum's in Wagga, so it's wet all around where I grew up, to be honest. It's very wet, which is, honestly, it's not very good at the moment.
No, it's a tricky thing for people in metropolitan areas to understand if they've never been out there, in that just how flat it is. You think, floods. Why is this all this? You drive past these, crossings and go, prone to flooding. What? How? And then you kind of see it like now, you go, that's why, and that's how. And it is just so isolated, and so many parts of our country are just held together with these little spindles of infrastructure that are just so vulnerable to extreme weather. So, I'm really thinking a lot of people who are that in that part of the country. It's pretty tough. And look, I know that, I don't want to make light of it, but lucky it's the off season, because in rain like this, no one's playing anything, are they?
Well, honestly, some of this rain has been, as I said, it's been really destructive, and people would, it'd be shocking for football or, sport and stuff to be played in. So, obviously, the Cricket World Cup only just got through, really. Yeah. So, it's been wreaking havoc all over the place at the moment.
And that's on the greatest grounds with the most professional groundskeepers on the planet. When you think of like a regional footy ground that's also the cricket ground, some of those places would be fucked.
Honestly, all the local, like where I grew up, in a good winter, there's only, a few inches of mud. But, if this was the winter, it would just be, they'd be shot. You'd barely be able to play anything on them. So,
right.
Yeah, but that's the way it is in the country. So you get on with it, don't you?
Where I grew up in Brisbane, and when I spent time in America, it's the first question that you ask a tall kid is, so you play basketball. At what point did people start going, you're going to be a good ruckman? Like, when did people start identifying that you're 196, you're head and shoulders taller than me? At what point did people start not ever contemplating that you might be able to offer things in the intellectual world or from the creative standpoint and just go, no, it's balls for you?
Honestly, I was probably later than what typically some other guys that come through and play AFL would be. I wasn't all that good as a junior in comparison to others. I didn't play many rep teams and stuff like that, but I think I had a big growth spurt when I was about 16, and really shot up. And then I played a bit of underage rep footy when I was 17, 18. And sort of just really started to come on from there. So I was probably pretty lucky to get drafted originally to Sydney when I first got rookied. I was pretty lucky, I think, at that stage, because I was very skinny,
Tall and skinny. I weighed 81 kilos when I first got recruited. Oh, strong, Osher. Strong 81.
I live in the part of Sydney where so for people that may not be familiar with it, or people living overseas, he's talking about the Sydney Swans, which are the AFL team down the road from us here. And when you get drafted as a rookie, the club helps organise accommodation for you. And there's right now, I don't know how it was when you were there, but there's a couple of share houses over in Maroubra where I'm guessing they were the places that you stayed. Because there's a place up the road. I don't have a sauna in my house, but through my hip recovery, I've been going there. And I just got chatting with these two kids. So from very similar kids to you, they're like from a regional town, they know 100 people who've known them their whole lives, and now they're living in a house in Maroubra with all these other dudes. And I was amazed. We got talking pretty deep pretty quick. I was amazed at how much support they had, because as we saw on the weekend, there was a cricketer who fell over at a party and broke his fibula, and that's it. He's 35. That's it. No season for you. When you got there, what was it like getting off the plane and getting into that environment where you're maybe the best footy player you've known, and now I'm in a house with heaps of other dudes and we're all competing for that spot?
Oh, it was pretty daunting because, as you sort of touched on, so I grew up in a town of 800 people, grew up on a farm, and I had no idea what professional sport was or really what the expectations were. Moved in with a couple other guys in a share house in Randwick, which the club had set up for me, and it was honestly, it was great. You basically instantly become mates with everyone there, because most of the guys are interstate people. Almost everyone came from interstate, so everyone had been in the same situation. So you ended up becoming really close with all the other teammates in Sydney, and I think it's unique in that sense that those footy clubs in those interstate clubs, I think, I don't know, everyone talks about the Swans culture and it's so strong, and it is, and I think they've been so strong for so long, but I think it's innately a little bit of that everyone is so tight because you're just trying to do this environment pretty much not knowing anyone else other than your teammates. Yeah. So the only people you hang out with, the only people you get to know them so well because you spend almost every moment with them, literally. So I think that's it's quite unique, and it was honestly, it was after the first little bit, it was unreal.
You're obviously carrying the weight of expectation of the 800 people in your town, and as week after week goes by, when they never see you running onto the field, do they call your parents? Do they find your parents at the pub, or do they, hey, what's going on there? What's that feeling like? Not only am I going to get a run? Do you get the feeling what are my family going through?
I didn't necessarily feel pressure from anyone where I grew up. I think I felt like everyone was really interested. Yeah. Because it's, it was typically not a whole lot happens around that area. So I felt quite in the sense that most people that I knew were excited for me and would just hope that it would go well, really, rather than any real pressure from those guys. I think the pressure to perform and succeed comes from yourself or myself, and then the expectations of the coaches in the footy club, really.
What's it like, though, when, week after week goes by and some of these guys that you've met and you start at the same time, they start to, get a glimpse of an opportunity here and there, and because you stayed in that kind of orbit.
I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, what was that like?
It's a mental challenge, isn't it, really? I felt like I felt like in myself I was pretty raw and had a long way to go. Yeah. But there was times, probably more in the second year I was at the Swans, where I was, and the coach has said I was close to getting a game. Yeah. But I never did. And I think I learned more after I was cut and delisted from them and told that my footy career was done than in the actual moment. I had a moment where I was 18, 19. I was pretty intimidated to speak to the senior coach, right? Paul Roos was the coach at the time, and I was pretty intimidated. I never really had a conversation with him, the senior coach. because I was a bit too scared to actually talk to him about how my performance was or anything. I'd stuck to my, the development coaches and the people that I worked with, but I didn't really put myself out there for the senior coach. And I remember he spoke to me about, he's like, because I was almost had another position for the third year there, but he was the one that's told me, no, we're not going with you. You're being delisted. Thanks very much. And I just remember actually speaking to him honestly for half an hour or so.
Wow.
And I remember walking out of that meeting going, why the fuck didn't I speak to this guy for the last 2 years? Like, not that anything might have changed, but I would have had a much better understanding of exactly what he wanted from me and the expectations of the senior coach, the man making the decisions, what he actually wanted from me rather than, hoping that what I was doing was right. So I honestly, I walked out of that time when he sacked me going, fuck, why didn't I just have these conversations with him earlier? Because I learned in that moment, I grew up, I think.
Yeah.
And going, geez, he wasn't that intimidating, to be honest.
Part of me wonders, like, our eldest, she's finished school now, but she danced for a long time. And she was doing 14 hours a week, like a lot. And I don't know if you know many dancers. They are they are strong people. It is grueling stuff. And I would go to these, recitals or whatever, and always the same kids are doing the solos. And I asked my wife, I was like, what's going on? And she goes, I am not going to be the mum that calls and hassles the teacher as to why little Jennifer isn't getting a solo. And once I realised that, was like, oh, shit, right. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes there's better kids on the stage, but the one whose mum is advocating, stage mum, stage dad, the one whose parent is advocating is the one that gets the slot. I'm wondering, is there any of that going on in the rookie scene?
Honestly, yes. I think that's a lot of it. So that's what I learned about that early situation. So you have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, someone else will. And then it's on you to perform. So then if I can back up, and if my performance backs up what I'm trying to say that I can do, then you're away and you start to build that confidence with the coaches and the confidence with your teammates that you can actually perform. But I think, definitely it's competitive amongst your teammates, because if you don't compete with your teammates, then you'll be gone. You'll come and go. Like, I would have seen hundreds of probably people that I've been on the list with, that a lot of them come and go, and that's it. You never really hear from them again. And I definitely learnt that in the first part of my career, that if I ever got another opportunity, then I wouldn't be hesitant in putting myself forward and just trying to get any opportunity I possibly could, and then it was up to me to back it up.
That's such an important lesson. I remember I learned the same. My buddy Youngie, he puts it this way. He's like, no one's going to walk down your driveway and knock on your front door and offer you the job. All right? You're absolutely right to have the, not necessarily confidence, but just to go, no, I'm here and this is what I'm here for. I'm going to tell this person, and then they give me the chance, and then I can prove what I've just said. And if there's a mismatch there, that's something I can work on. But if they never know, then that's kind of on me. And that's kind of a thing to grapple with. And so you leave the Swans, or shit, what do I do now? Like, what move is the next move? You go to Adelaide to play with the SANFL. Like, what's that scene like as a player who was drafted to the major leagues, was drafted to the AFL, and now plays for the SANFL? It's still like American. I'm so confused with it.
The Sandful.
Sandful.
Look, it was really good. The initial move was, all of my thinking was, I want to get back in the AFL. So the advice was to go and play the best footy that I could and give myself the opportunity. So going to the Sandful was really good footy. The move was great. Like, honestly, I had an awesome time in Adelaide. I loved my time there. I met great people. It was a good footy club. It was reasonably professional, and it was good standard of footy. And I think I went there with, as I said, I just come off an AFL list. But I went there with confidence that, all right, sort of that mindset again. I'm just going to give it everything that I've got and put myself out there and just be the man and see where it takes me, And I think that mindset helped me in performing well in footy. And then, I don't know, I felt like that was a point where I grew up a bit as well for that move and matured as a person, I think. And, I sort of tried to carry that mindset through from there, and it's basically held me in pretty good stead.
When I lived in America, I was always quite impressed with the idea that the pathway to the NFL or the NFL or NBA is through university, and that you can't be on the squad unless you are getting a degree. And look, there may be some fudging of numbers depending on how great someone's athletic skills are. This is true. But it just kind of, what I liked about it is it recognised that, look, it's like when we did Australian Idol. We had to listen to 12,000 people sing to find one girl, Sebastian, and that's the reality of it, right?
That would be brutal, yeah.
But for the 11,999 other people who haven't got a backup plan, when you were in Adelaide, did you kind of go, well, I'm going to have to figure out what else I can do if this doesn't work out? Like, why? When did you start to look for a redundancy or just something else to have as your definition?
It was definitely at that point. So Sandford was semi-professional, but I absolutely at that point. Basically, one of the main things is I spoke to a few different Sandford clubs when I was going over there, but one of the main things that I asked of them was to find me a carpentry apprenticeship.
Wow.
So basically, I'll come and play for you if you can hook me up with a carpentry apprenticeship. So it was Norwood, who I played for, were basically the first one to say, yep, we've got a sponsor. One of our sponsors is a builder.
Amazing.
And they'll put you on. So I was like, all right, bang, I'll play at Norwood. So definitely at that point, it was I still wanted, and my goal was to play AFL again. But clearly, I've got the rest of my life that's happening, and I need to have something. And carpentry was something that was always interested me. I grew up on a farm. I was always building things and always doing stuff. So building carpentry was always there as a passion and things that I like. But footy was probably always the first passion. But certainly at that point that was reality where, okay, footy can be a professional, can be a profession and be awesome, but the reality was definitely that stage. First year apprentice, battling away.
You don't want to be Kenny Powers. You want to have someone else to fall back on, Well, now I've got to ask. So you're 21 years old. You're nearly 2 meters tall. Were they playing the same kind of apprentice bullshit games on you?
No, to be honest, I didn't get treated very poorly. I felt like I had a bit of a step up on some of the, like a little 16-year-old kid that's, would just get bullied by people, but good boss. Good company, so I honestly can't complain too much about that.
Well, he did the right thing because if they're a sponsor, they want you to do, to play well, and so therefore they're going to make sure that maybe don't carry that up the stairs. They don't have a balustrade yet. Maybe let's get someone else to do that.
Exactly.
But if you watch any highlight reels of any kind of injury or whatever. Like literally in a 125th of a second, that's an MCL gone, or that's a shoulder gone. It's this not even a blink of an eye, and then your entire pathway is completely changed. And if you don't have anything to back it up, if you don't have somewhere else to go or somewhere else to do, not even physically, it's like mentally, like what are you going to do? And I'm sure you would have seen that in your colleagues in the past.
Absolutely. So I think as I went on, I definitely knew and learnt, and I was lucky enough to get drafted again when I was 24 to Carlton. But I always knew that footy could go in an instant, whether it was injury or I just wasn't good enough, I wasn't going to get there. I knew that it was always going to end at some point. Hopefully, I hoped that it would, I'd get a few years, really. I probably only really ever hoped that I'd get a few more years and play some games of footy. But it is so, honestly, and I still don't think players in the AFL do near enough to prepare themselves afterwards. I think there's amazing programs in the AFL, and PA have all the resources and ability there for players to honestly give themselves a real leg up. But most players don't do near enough to prepare themselves for after footy.
I talk about this a bit sometimes when I talk on stage, is that, you know, you can know what to do in a crisis, but then when the crisis hits, you're going to have to actually do it. Unfortunately, you can only lead people to the door. They're going to have to walk through it. And that's really, that can be really hard sometimes to deal with. But look, I'm glad you, and I love that you took it so seriously when you were first approached about Carlton. You went, sorry, I've got one more year to complete this apprenticeship. I appreciate it. That's what I know it's the second time I've said it in the conversation, but what balls? Like, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a funny story, that one, Osho. There's a bit of
is there some urban legend around there? Has it got a bit of mayo on it?
Yeah, it does, because I think in the recruiting at Carlton, there was a bit of a power struggle between recruiters.
Yeah.
So one particular recruiter wanted to draft me, one didn't. In the end, like, it's funny. Carlton was speaking to me, said there's potentially an opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And Norwood said, oh, well, if you knock back that opportunity for the rookie spot, we could potentially offer you a few more $1,000 a year. It might be $3,000 a year or something. I was like, oh, okay, all right. Let me just call the recruiter. And I was like, oh, look, I know you can never guarantee anything, but am I still a chance? So I'm still a chance. I'm keen. And they said, no, we're not going to take you. I said, oh, honestly, perfect. Thanks very much for your honesty. Went back to Norwood and I said, fellas, I've knocked them back. So,
hey, whatever you got to do with a negotiation, man. Like, I appreciate that.
I just love this footy club at Norwood. I said, I've knocked back Carlton an extra $3,000 a year or something. Beautiful. Thanks very much, guys. So I did sort of play that pretty well, I thought. Having
negotiated my own contract directly with a television network and with a radio network before, don't even worry.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It was funny. It was good.
Yeah, so you get to Carlton. You're there. Amazing. At what point did you realise that something was kind of up? At what point did you go, I might have to see a doctor about this? Like, what was the first sign?
The first sign, so again, so I got there, when did I move over? So December of 2011.
Right.
So it came about pretty quickly. So I was laying in bed one night next to my now wife. I was just sort of, like you do, Osho, sitting there just playing with the balls, right?
I could tell Audrey all the time, it's like, no, I'm not doing what you think I am. It's just, you don't understand. They change shape and size depending on the temperature of the room and the humidity. I'm just repacking things because it's uncomfortable and I'm just trying to make things more comfortable. That's it.
Exactly. We'll keep running with that. Yeah. So, look, and I just felt a bit of a hard lump on one of my testicles, my left testicle. And I just thought, like, it was just hard. It wasn't sore. And it just felt hard and different. I remember saying, to my wife now, I was like, hey, Tash, can you just have a feel of this? I think she's just like, oh, yeah, not tonight. Wouldn't have thought so. But then I was like, oh, no, it feels a bit, I don't know, it just feels a bit weird. And then I didn't actually show the club doctor for like 2 or 3 weeks, I think. But I don't know if I was trying to not think about it and just pretend that it wasn't there. I think that's probably what I was doing. Just going, it's fine. It's nothing. I just don't want to really think about it right now. And I think at the time that's what I was doing.
Mate, you're not alone with that. I'm most definitely guilty of that. If I just don't think about it, I don't have it. It'll be fine. No, it's not.
Yeah. So, like, in the end, after my missus kept every few days, she'd be like, oh, did you just speak to the doctor yet? And I was like, oh, no, I haven't yet. I will tomorrow. Because the doctors are there every day at footy. It's easy. They're accessible. So, I ended up showing the doctor one day and he said, go and get an ultrasound. So I went in there just one Friday afternoon. I remember it was right at the start of the season and I was in the VFL So I remember we had VFL training on the Friday night. So I went and got the scan at, I don't know, mid-afternoon or something. And then, radiologists never really tell you what's going on. But if there's nothing really wrong, or now you know this now, if there's nothing really wrong, they tell you what's going on. But they say, the doctor has to confirm it. This
we're
is
talking
what it looks
about
like.
what we're talking about is the person with the ultrasound. They're the person with the weird little wand and the cold jelly, and they're
exactly.
they're like, you're the 47th person I've seen with their pants off today. I'm so bored, and because they do it so much, they never go, I don't really know what that is. The doctor will give you a report. They're trying to obfuscate because they don't want to be the ones to tell you something that might essentially change your life.
Exactly. So had the ultrasound. And then went off and did some groceries. I was in the supermarket getting some groceries for dinner. I remember the club doctor called me. He's like, Sam, come and see me. And I was like, look, I'll see you Monday. I've got to head off to training in a second. He's like, no, mate, you got to come see me right now. I'm in this city. I'm consulting in this room. Come and see me. Like, it's serious. And I was like, I just remember, honestly, it was mostly a daze. Yeah. But I just remember I just dropped the basket, and I was just in this absolute daze driving into the city. I think I almost absolutely cleaned up a car because I was just not even thinking, couldn't even really tell you what I was thinking about. And then, went and saw the doctor, and he's like, there's not much he could say. He's like, look, it looks like it's cancer. He'd already got me to go and see a specialist an hour later,
Wow, yeah.
Which is, I was so lucky that I was in the AFL system because it was basically 7 o'clock on a Friday night they got me to go see a specialist. But probably one of the hardest things at that moment was I didn't know how to tell my family and my missus about what it was. And I remember I called Tash, my missus, I think, to say, look, like this, I think this is what it is. But I couldn't tell my parents. I just couldn't do it. And the doctor's like, you want me to call them? And then he called them, and I was just bawling my eyes out. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah. It's just so scary. Those early, particularly when it comes to, you spent 3 weeks avoiding it. And then when you realize that, this is a matter of hours. This is no longer about, we'll see you Monday. This is, no. Someone's putting their dinner down halfway through, leaving their kids and driving into the city to come and see me because this is time is such a critical. Things move so fast. You've got no time to even process what's going on. It must have been so intense for you.
And I still had no idea about it. Like, I was so uneducated about testicular cancer or really any sort of health-related stuff, really. I was very in tune with my body physically through footy because that's what I was used to and trained for. But I was so naive in, the whole world of health, really. So I had no idea what I was up for. And that's really probably a couple of days, my head was spinning. And then once I felt like I saw the specialist, and they saw the specialist that night, and he was like, okay, looks like cancer, but we're taking one of your testicles out. I was sort of like, all right, well, can you do anything else for it? He's like, no, that's the only way we can check it is to take it out. So you're one down. I was like, sort of that conversation, like, oh my God, like, Jesus, I'm losing one. All right, well, talk to me about what happens now. And so that process was a real head spinner. Those few days was, sometimes quite comical, I think. Like, I kind of found myself laughing at certain points of it because in a space of a couple of days, you get so used to walking into a room or to all of a sudden walking into a room, just pulling my pants down and a few people just fondling your balls because everyone medically wants to have a feel and check it themselves, to then another funny moment, which I thought was, I think in hindsight, was pretty funny, going in to get sized up. So you had the option of getting a prosthetic testicle, a fakie, or not. So I went with the fakie. I thought it'd make me feel normal. So, but you have to get sized up for them. So I went into this nurse's room and.
Did you have the key ring thing with them all on it?
Literally, almost, basically.
I've had that. It's bananas.
Yeah. So she's like, okay, I've got a size up. Probably a large, and then she's like, oh, no, you're more of a medium. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, so medium it is. And then, had to choose the softness of it and all these sort of things. And I'm just like, oh, God, like, what do I do here? Then she sort of guided me through it. She's like, look, go this one. This is the medium. It feels better once it's in, blah, 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 blah. Like, those sort of things that were like, oh, God, like, what is going on? I'm walking here to getting sized up for a new ball. Like, it was funny, but like, sort of like, what the fuck is going on at the same time?
We're so weird as men. We're just kind of, it's drilled into us that our definition of how masculine we are or what we can achieve or how, powerful we are as a person has to do with the size of a particular organ in our body, not the content of our character. I went through nothing like you. I went to go check because there was something going on. I went to go check. Yeah. Is it that what it is? And it turns out it wasn't. It was something else. But I remember lying there on the urologist's bed. This was in Los Angeles where I lived there. And he pulled out of his drawer, you know how sometimes if you're baking, you've got measuring spoons and you've got from the 16th of a teaspoon all the way to a tablespoon. Yeah. There's like, ingredients. They're just on this big ring, like a prison key ring, right? He pulls out this thing and it's just like from the size of a ringtail possum poo all the way to the size of a potato, all right? And he just pulls it out and he has one in one hand, he has my balls in the other, and he's just kind of fondling each one, going back and forth. And I'm looking at the size of one of them going like, that's a fucking squishy baseball. How the fuck does someone walk around with that? Or, let alone, it's so common they've had to create this medical device with it on there for men who have a ball that big. And just
absolutely
was wild.
How uncomfortable would that be? Thank God I don't have balls like potatoes. That would be excruciating.
Isn't that so weird that we have this thing as men? Like I said it, and inadvertently I said it earlier. There's like, what balls? We have this thing, like this particular part of our body means more than the fact that you walked up to someone and said, this is what I need. And I wonder if that's one of the barricades that was going on for you or for other men who perhaps resist even investigating treatment, because we have this completely ridiculous connection to our masculinity around the size and or health of our testicles.
Yeah, I think in reality it was. Like, I was naive and stubborn to the thought that anything could be wrong with me. And certainly I couldn't even think that, what do you mean my balls aren't right? That's something I couldn't comprehend. So, like, my mindset, I think is, and it is, very typical for a lot of young guys out there. We think that we're invincible, and this stuff doesn't, what do you mean? Like, cancer and stuff doesn't happen to young guys. I mean, in reality it does. Testicular cancer, and you know all this, Osha, like, it's the most common form of cancer for young men. It's, almost exclusively for people under 35 to 40. Once you get to 35 or 40, it doesn't happen for you anymore. It turns to prostate cancer and other things, but it's a young man's disease. And God, I don't know if it's good or bad. In footy, in AFL, there's been a handful of people in the last, or like since I had it, I think there's been 5 or 6 others that have had testicular cancer in the last, 6 or 7 years, which just, to me, just confirms and shows, and hopefully people who listen to this, hopefully maybe it makes them think that you're right. It's not uncommon. You can't hide from it. It happens to anyone and everyone, potentially. So there's nothing you can do to really stop it. And like me, I was very lucky, Osha. I got it early. I was stage 1. I still had chemo, but my health has been perfect since.
Wow. And
I never actually really felt sick from it, but it is potentially, obviously, very dangerous and can bloody kill you.
Because there's, someone in my life that succumbed to testicular cancer, the cancer that came from the testicular cancer. And it's just wild because it's just part of our body that there's so much stigma around checking it. I mean, we both kind of joked about how we were playing with your balls. We had to make jokes about it. There's stigma around checking it. No one's going to stigmatize a woman for checking lumps in her breast. But,
not at all.
You know, is it like, are you sure you're checking? You're just having a wank there, buddy. Like, you could die if you don't do it. Come on. Yeah. You know, what would you say to young men about checking?
Don't be that dickhead who thinks that it just can't happen to you. It just happens. And bloody hell, talk to your mates about it. And that's what I was always pretty but probably like I never spoke about my emotions or my health or anything like that prior to this. But there is only good things that come of it. If there's nothing wrong with you, perfect. There'll still be nothing wrong with you. But you've checked or you've had a conversation with your mate or someone. But just be conscious of it. Like there's no harm in just actually consciously checking your balls every now and then, a few times a year, like, or more often if you want to actually have a wank at the same time, Osher. So
trick yourself.
Exactly. So
fine.
Like, I still think so many young guys are stubborn about it and just want to put your head in the sand and pretend that it doesn't exist or it can't happen. So as much as we can, I want to just keep pushing that message just to check it. And if something doesn't feel right, just go speak to a doctor or speak to your friends or just check it off with someone because inevitably something will come from that.
Step by step. Let's say, for example, we're in the shower. Step by step, how do we do it?
Good question, Osher. Well, if you're also wondering, it is on the Movember. Movember have a lot of literature about it, which is good, but best off, get a nice warm shower. So, as you know, it gets a little bit saggy. It's not all contracted up, so you can feel everything pretty well. And just run your ball in between your thumb and your first finger and just gently rub it around. And if you can feel if it feels all normal and squishy and know what your normal is, because everyone is different. Some people might have normally some different feeling testicles, but know what your normal is. And then if you feel any changes, any hard lumps or anything, then that's a sign to go get it checked. So, but in order to do that, you need to do it semi-regularly to know what your normal is. So that's as easy as it is, Osher.
Put a note in your phone, dude. Like once a month. That's it. Yeah. This is what we're doing. Yeah. And that's it. Doesn't take very long. Like 10 seconds per ball.
10 seconds. Yeah.
There you go.
Easy.
You can do that.
Easy.
What are you doing in there? Nothing. I'm fine. You know.
I'm doing a health check.
I did it again. I can't believe how hung up I am about it, but I fucking did it again. Isn't it wild? It's so programmed into us, isn't it? To be ashamed of it.
No. We can still have fun with it. I think,
it's true.
We can still have fun.
It is true. I had I spoke with Charlie Borman once, the long way round motorbike rider, the actor.
Oh, okay. Yep.
He told me this whole story about, well, my wife and I get in a bath together, and then and she checks me. Like, and then fair enough, Charlie, make a night of it. There you pop, and that's great. And I love that idea. You know, I love that was also because she's heavily invested in him staying alive.
Absolutely. I might try and employ that tactic, see how I go.
Well, it depends on how early the kids get to bed and if everything's been done around the house. I mean, I'm not to tell you anything, but I'm just going from my own experience. Tell me about you're in your mid-20s. You're peak male fitness, and you are looking at something like chemotherapy. You've been probably the most fit person you've ever known your whole life. What does it feel like to start? You said you were really in tune with your body. What was it like to kind of feel the effects of the chemo on your body?
I was looking and feeling for every change that I could try and feel. And I think footy taught me some lessons that I tried to take into chemo, that I would mentally and I had a few quiet moments before I started and tried to put myself in a headspace to think that that chemo was just going to be a big challenge for me, something that I wanted to attack and give everything that I could. Well, sort of like I would try to treat a big training session or something.
Yeah.
And even though I was laying there getting drugs injected into you, poison, put into your veins, I tried to mentally sort of tell myself that every time that it happened, it was a good thing. And it was like, I tried to feel like, yes, thank God I'm getting the chemo today because it's and fun. Like almost maybe it sounds a bit stupid, but I tried to almost visualize all the chemo going in and finding like the points of cancer and sort of killing them off. And I mean, look, I think anyone that goes through chemo would tell you that it's a bloody tough, and it was. But I think I was honestly very lucky in this. My side effects weren't that bad. I didn't get very sick. Like all the anti-nausea drugs that they give you, they pump into you. I responded pretty well from that. So I didn't really get sick. I didn't lose weight like some people can. Yeah. I lost all the hair all over myself, which was like, that was a pretty shocking sort of time, because I just remember I would check my hair every day, because they said at some stage it'll just come. And I'd be like, every day I'd be like, geez, is there anything coming out? Nothing. And then one day it was just like that, and a whole clump came out. It's just like, fuck. All right, it started. Like, because until that point, I looked exactly like I did. I felt pretty normal. I had the drip in my arm and stuff, and I was in hospital most of the time, but I looked like myself. Yeah. I think after all the hair came out, that was sort of when it hit me again. It's sort of like, it's all happening. So again, I think in those moments I had to try and tell myself that, that everything's going to be all right. And I had good people around me, don't get me wrong. I feel like my family and friends are fantastic, but I think in those moments I had to keep trying to tell myself that it's going to be all right. I'm going to get through this, and it was pretty tough. It was pretty tough in those moments.
I've got to applaud you though for having that mindset and deliberately framing something that can be really uncomfortable, distressing, painful, even disruptive, framing it in a positive light. So yes, this might make my body feel shit, but it's a good thing that it's happening, and framing it like that. So that's a huge psychological thing. So like subconsciously, you're, you maybe put yourself in a place where you're, don't fear it so much, or, don't catastrophize around it, which can be a real problem with any kind of medical situation. Any kind of catastrophizing around it can really exacerbate the negative aspects of it. And, when you talked about visualizing this drug going inside you and destroying these cancerous cells, that in itself, that's some pretty advanced stuff, man. Like, but it's really important because it's putting the subconscious framing of what's happening to you in not in a negative light. Because if you just associate it with pain and vomiting and hair falling out, then every experience is going to be shit.
And like I felt like it really helped me, because oncology wards, so anyone who's been unlucky enough to spend any time in oncology wards, they're not fun places. No. Everywhere you look, you're reminded of sickness, and they're really tough places. A lot of people don't leave those places, and you see them, and you see the pain. I felt all right during all of my stuff. The hardest thing that I felt or saw was my family, when they would sit there and be fairly helpless, and the families of other people who were in there. Like everyone, all the other families and people surrounded, they're close to the people who are sick, are so helpless, and you can just see everyone wants to do something and they can't. And I that's probably one of the things that I found the hardest, because for me, like it was happening, I was getting the drugs, I was getting the treatment, the doctors were doing everything for me. I felt in relative control about what was happening for my situation, but for everyone close to me, it was pretty tough, because everyone wants to do something to help, but there's nothing that they can do, and it's hard to watch people, go through that, that frame of mind where everyone's just desperate to help.
What would you say to people who,
the chances are that someone is going to have an encounter with an oncology ward between, someone you love at some point in your life is going to have an encounter with an oncology ward. Might be you, might be someone you love. What would you say to people about what they can do in those situations?
When you're in there, everyone, it's obvious you're sick and you're in there for a reason, but I would think try to carry on normal conversations and just speak to people about, and if they want to speak about how they're feeling, sort of just be guided by anyone who's in there. But I think it would vary for everyone. I don't know if I can give advice for how to tackle it, but really just be there for someone, because regardless of what anyone could say or do for me in that time, probably actually like just having someone, even some of my mates would pop in for 10 minutes, and just knowing that they'd come in for 10 minutes would put a smile on my face. Like, my family was there all the time, which was something that I could always bank on and was great. But just for the people just to send you a text or, come and see you for 10 minutes, mentally does a lot for people who are doing it pretty tough. So, you'd have to always be guided by people in that situation, but just know that there's nothing you can really do apart from just be there for them, really.
On the other side of the treatment, what does it feel like? Like, did you get frustrated that you weren't getting your strength back, or was it the opposite of the hair situation? Was it like not working, and then one day like, wow, I can stand up without being dizzy? Like, what was the kind of other side of that like?
Yeah, it was slow. Like, it was slow. 'Cause I remember I was still in the mindset. I was like, I just want to get back and play footy as quickly as I can.
Of course you do. You've been drafted to the main, a big Premier League team. You want to go and prove it.
And I was so far off it then, clearly. Like I was, but then I had a blood clot from the PICC lines and stuff in there. I had a blood clot in my neck or shoulder here somewhere.
Yeah.
So then I had to be on blood thinners for another 3 or 4 months or something. So it was probably good in the sense that then I could put a very slow and planned out, program together to get myself back up and going. And it's slow, so like your body just takes such a hit in that time. So all my mental capacity and physical capacity was just to get myself healthy again. And then once I finally got all the good results from all the treatment, and that was ongoing for the next 5 years. You keep checking it, but I started to get that out of my mind and just turn my focus and attention to giving myself the best opportunity I could to succeed in footy, because that was one of my passions that I had in life. Something I'd always wanted to do was to play AFL, and I'd been on a list before, but I hadn't played any games, and I just started to focus all my attention to give myself the best opportunity.
What role did your now wife Taj play in that part of the situation?
She was so good for me, really, because she was always there. So there during the treatment, she was a very good support in just encouraging me to keep trying to, succeed and do whatever I wanted to do, and what I wanted to do was, play footy. So she encouraged me to give it everything I could, and she was always just there as a support for me. So certainly in those times, I'm very thankful that I had her in my life, and she's certainly still there for a reason. So she's a good woman. So she was a great support during that time. There's no doubt about that.
I know I've had a chat with, a few men who have been through prostate cancer treatment and talked to them about how do they maintain the kind of intimate romantic parts of their relationships after prostate cancer surgery. What's that like with, testicular cancer surgery and the recovery from that? Like, how do you maintain the intimate part of a relationship on the other side of that kind of treatment?
Well, initially, I didn't know what that meant for having a testicle removed. I didn't know what that meant initially. Like, it's like, geez, can I still have kids? Is it going to make it tough? Like, what's going on there? But pretty quickly I learned that in actual fact, one testicle is just as good as 2 because your body, it's like whoever designed us gave us an insurance policy because if you lose one, your other testicle ups its production and just goes, righto, guys, we've lost one soldier. Let's work a bit harder. So
we're doing double shifts, boys.
It is. We're doing night shift. Everyone's going 24 hours a day now. So look, I was lucky in the sense that I've got a 3-year-old son now, so I didn't have any troubles having kids after that, which the testicular cancer doesn't necessarily cause any issues. The chemo can. Chemo can make you infertile. So that was always something that I would have to look at. But in the, when I said those few days where everything was going very quickly, in those few days when I first got diagnosed to before I started chemo, I had to go put some sperm in the bank. So in that little window before I started chemo, I very quickly went into one of those beautiful rooms where there's I don't know if you ever had to go into those rooms, Osher.
I have actually. I have, and it's a very strange experience.
Yeah, you get to reception and they go, "Oh, everyone's busy in there at the moment. We'll just that guy will be finished in a couple of minutes. We'll just go clean up and then you'll be in a couple." I was like, "Oh, every 10 minutes someone's coming and waking in these rooms." It's like, "Oh, all right, no worries. I'll just wait until this guy's done and then I'll go in." So I remember walking in and everything's there on for shows. Like there's porn mightn't have been what it is now, how accessible it is. But there was DVDs, magazines, TV ready to go there, everything. I was like, oh yeah, I don't think I've touched it now. So who knows what's going on in those things? Like again, back to that point, why are we so why do we laugh about it so much when someone's got to go in there and put some sperm in a cup? There's obviously a medical reason why we need to do it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's someone's doing it for all these different reasons. So, geez, we don't need to hide all these things that we do all the time.
You ended up playing 100 games for AFL. Like when you were kind of like in the mid 70s, mid 80s, on your way to 100, what was it? Do you think you approached the games differently because it was so close to you never doing it? Or because you had, not even without the testicular cancer, with the false start, with going out to Norwood, like, did you think you had more appreciation of, what it was to be walking out of that field every time versus other guys who maybe had a more straight line from the day they got drafted as a rookie?
I think so. I think I did, in the sense that because I'd had footy, I was started and got delisted, and then I came back, and then the cancer came. So I felt like if I could play again, came back. If I could play one game, I'd be so proud of myself, proud, and I'd be like, "Geez, what an achievement!" After all that, I've got back to play one game of AFL, and then you play that first game, and you go, "Poor, Jesus, this is so good. I'm going to do everything I can to just not get dropped next week, and then just do everything I can to just get another few games because this is so good." And then I probably established myself after a couple of years. Like probably the first year I started playing, I was in and out, and then established myself in the team. And I think then your mindset sort of turns from, I didn't think I wasn't going to get dropped every week, but then I kept doing everything I could to try and achieve something with the team. So I think I always appreciated and knew that footy was tough. It could stop at any stage, and I really appreciated it and knew that everything that I was getting in footy I had to earn, and I was very proud in the end that, geez, I got to 100, 99 with the Blues, and just missed out on the 100 at Carlton, which would have been nice, but then ended up knocking out one more game with the Saners at the end. So amazing. I finished my career. I would have loved to have some more team success because the Blues was in a pretty dry era where we didn't win many games. But I could honestly finish. I can sit back now and go, do you know what? I literally did give it everything I had and played 100 games of AFL, which is more than I ever imagined, more than I ever really dreamt of. And I'm so proud that I was able to do that. Yeah, even now, sitting there go, geez, I'd been all right in the end.
Yeah, it's the dream career you've described. There's something that you mentioned before, though, that once you were able to prove yourself to the point where being dropped was no longer a thing you had to worry about every week, you shifted your focus to doing something for the does that mean every game you're like, how can I be a part of something that's great for everybody? Was that what you were trying to achieve every game?
I tried to play and be the best teammate that I could, because definitely initially I was. And my mindset is very common for young guys or people who are trying to establish themselves. You're just trying to perform for yourself, really, just to get yourself in that team. And I think once you establish yourself, anyone who lasts has to do it for more than just themselves. So I always tried to be the best teammate that I could and play my role so that we could succeed as a team. Because really, playing is good, but once you get past that point, you want to win, and winning with your team is the best feeling in the world. Really, it's very hard to replicate in life. That feeling of after a game of sport, especially at the highest level, it is such an amazing feeling to win a game of footy with your teammates, and you learn to try and replicate that feeling as much as you can, and do whatever you can to replicate that again and again. And we weren't all that good at it, the Blues, but the actual challenge of trying to replicate that is the challenge was really hard but satisfying, really.
What you mentioned before about trying to be the best teammate that you could. I mean, we love sport because sport is not only war without weapons. Sport is something that can bring analogies into our everyday lives, and the idea that showing up, not just for me, I'm showing up for all of us, it really shifts how you are when you're at work or with your family or like doing whatever. It changes the experience. In my experience, it changes to a far more satisfying one.
Yeah, I think so too. Like footy's team sport, clearly. You cannot achieve anything by yourself. And I find I do this in life now. I don't want to do anything by myself. Really, I want to do everything with people, and I want to try and succeed with people, because I find that a lot more satisfying than succeeding by yourself. I think that's, for me anyway, I find that a bit boring, and if you can't share it with anyone, then what's the point of it? So, I guess I live by that, really. Everything I do, I want to do with people, and I want to succeed with people, and I think sport's no different. And all the good teams, I think the good teams in footy have the majority of people are like-minded like that. You have to do it with each other and for each other, because every team's got superstars and they'll keep doing their thing. But if everyone else can band together and with those guns in the team as well, then that's when you actually do good things.
Mate, I could talk to you for hours, bro, but I just can't thank you enough for having this conversation with me today. You've got a lot of wisdom, and your son's a lucky man to have you as a dad to be able to, to have that kind of. No, not everyone's dad's been through what you've been through, so that he gets to have you. You get to pass on the lessons that you've had to go through shit to learn, and this kid will get to take those lessons and then go from there, mate. It's been amazing. I think if I'm to run onto the field after the podcast and get the your breathless kind of sports reporter, Sam, how did the podcast go, mate?
Osher, very good, mate. Osher, honestly, it's been great to speak with you. I appreciate. No, seriously, I appreciate everyone who helps Movember and helps raise the awareness for guys and their health. And this message is an important one, and one we need to keep. We need to keep pushing it, because it's bloody important for the dads and the mates and the sons in our lives, because we always need to help each other and do what we can for each other. So
anyone, if you're listening to this and you have access to the
if you're a man person with testicles, you can put in your phone right now, monthly repeat, Sam Rowe wants me to check my balls today. Yeah. And if you're a lady person who has a man person with testicles in your life, whether they be a teenager or whatever, go into their phone and put a monthly reminder in there, and you can say, Sam Rowe wants me to check my balls today. And there it is. It's in your phone now. And it'll go, oh, what am I supposed to do? Ah, that's right. That's what I'm doing in the shower today. You're amazing, bro. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Shah, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much.